Hello, welcome to Mind Your Business. This is my weekly video podcast where we get to talk about business, interview people to teach us business so we can all create wealth and impact people. I am Amma Duncan, founder of the Fabulous Women Network. Now, on today's episode of Mind Your Business, I have the privilege of finally grabbing a very amazing woman. I've been asking her forever, but she's so busy. You know how it is. So let me read her bio. She's called Doreen Baffoe. Doreen lives and breathes self-leadership. So true. She believes that once people begin to take ownership of their brands, creating a culture where people thrive and objectives are met to follow naturally. In 2013, she founded Branchout Africa to bring leadership development and coaching to individuals, executives, and teams seeking to work better together to achieve shared objectives. Ladies, gentlemen, grab your water. Yeah, water is the safest. Grab it. Get your pen and then notebook. Let's take some notes as we enjoy this conversation.
Thank you, Coach Amma. Now, if you call me Coach Doreen, I call you Coach Amma as well, because then I know you're on the same journey.
It's really a pleasure to be part of ACP as well. That's Association of Coaching Practitioners Ghana. So let me just clarify, just in case anyone is watching. So thank you for making the time. And today we are just going to have conversations all about branching out, and you're going to explain all that to us. But before we go there, tell us about you. I've heard some really interesting stories about your childhood and some of the experience. Let's drop one of those. Tell us about how it was like growing up.
I think that, and thank you, Amma. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this for a while. So it just gives me a lot of pleasure to be able to do this with you. Growing up, I like to think that I had an amazing childhood. We didn't have a lot, but it was fun. So there was 4 of us. Between my mom and my dad, I'm the second of 4. And so I learned really early to be my mom's deputy. I think I was about 8 when she first told me that I was going to be the one who takes over when she was no more available. And I kind of thought it was like a big thing, because then my youngest brother had just been born, and he was he was beautiful. When a baby is born, and he was born in November. In November in northern Nigeria, it's a very cold period. And she had wrapped him in this pink and white shawl, and I remember very well. And she had lighted the coal pot in the room for heating. And she had asked me to watch over him as she went to take a bath. And I just sat by this beautiful soul. He just looked lovely, And my mom came back, and I was still sitting there, and she said, "You like him, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "You can have him." It's yours for life. And then that's when she had that conversation with me. She said, from now on, if I'm not available, you are the mother in charge. And I'm not sure why, but for an 8-year-old, I took it really serious, And so in my mind, there was a lot to learn, a lot to do. And I think I took it more seriously than she actually meant it to be, because it meant for me being able to provide food for them. And so as early as that, I learned learning to cook was important, learning to gather them, ensure that we're all doing the right things at the right time. So I earned the nickname from my siblings, Uwakarama, which means little mother in Hausa. Oh. And they still call me that. Uwakarama, which is little mother. So it's just, and I think I still represent that for them today, because my mom is no more, but I think that she had prepared me really early enough to become her successor. And so when I was getting married, and I married really early, I married when I was on campus. I've been juggling several things at the same time, And I remember asking my mom the evening before the marriage, I'm like, how do I know I'm ready? Because suddenly I started feeling like I wasn't ready. because I was quite young. I married 22, 23, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you've been ready for a very long time." I'm like, "How do you know?" She said,
"From 8 years."
She said, "Because I raised you, And she said something profound that evening. She said, "The maturity required to marry," my husband is called Baffoe. "The maturity you require to marry a boy, you can only get it in marriage to a boy." And so it just meant if I were marrying somebody else as well, the maturity I would have needed to marry that person, I probably would have found it in that relationship. Yeah. I learned to make sense of that statement later on that journey, because I've been on that journey for a while now. Actually, I've been married for 23 years. Don't say that anyway.
And I am 22, so you were married a year before I was born.
I know, right? Yeah. And so I think that grounding helped me really, I think I learned to take things really seriously early enough. It took me quite a while of journey of self-awareness to kind of say, it's okay actually to relax and have fun. Mm-hmm. I took things too seriously as a child, So that's a bit about my childhood. But what I do, I currently am the lead coach and founder at Branchout Africa. It's a leadership development firm. I've toyed with how we brand ourselves over a period. Initially, I called it a learning intervention firm, but from as long as before Branchout became Branchout, what we have focused on essentially is transformation of the individual, so that they can in turn transform the world around them, so their families and their businesses. So only recently, myself and two of my partners, we said, okay, let's carve out our unique selling proposition. And we after deliberation over a period, we said, we actually transform businesses and families by transforming lives. So that's what I do. And we do it in different ways. We do it through corporate training, through embedding coaching in organizations, through leadership development and coaching for the individual. We do it through transitional or transitioning leadership programs. And that's one of my favorites because as you learn shortly, I have transitioned several roles. I've been in corporate Ghana for 21 years. And in that 21 years, I've worked in 6 places. One was for a very short term. So let's say 5 places. So if we average it, that's one transition every 4 years. And so I really, really love working with leaders when they're transitioning from one level of leadership to the other. In my personal life, I have 2 young adults. I don't know, call them kids, I guess. When I say you meet my kids, I'm quickly corrected. We are children, but we're not kids. I'm like, my apologies.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So I have 2 young adults, and I've already mentioned Eko, but he and I have been on this walk for quite a while. And interestingly, we say we still keep learning about each other. So that's, in the nutshell, that's a bit about Doreen Baffoe.
Wow. And I love, bless your mom. I love that story about her. And then the words of wisdom she shared with you, I think they are very deep. And so you grew up in Nigeria, but you're Ghanaian.
Yes. So my father is 100% Fanti, and my mom is 100% Achim. But my entire formative years was in northern Nigeria. And so I kind of think of myself as a Gajerian. Because
so that's one word I haven't heard yet. Gajerian.
Yes, that's the mixed breed, Nigerian and Ghanaian, because I speak Hausa flawlessly. My siblings and I communicate in Hausa, and my parents, who are no more, also communicated with us in Hausa.
Wow.
And if I think of my initial years, initial friendship, initial uncles and aunties who shaped my life, all of them are Nigerians. So northern Nigeria remains home to me. I grew up in Jos Plateau State. and went to Baptist Primary School and went to Federal Government Girls College in Langton, which is also in northern Nigeria. And then I came to Ghana for university. So
Legon?
Yes, that's Legon. Yeah. Yeah.
I know I've asked you this off camera before, but let me ask again. Where is the accent? Where is the com?
So when I first came up, and that's the thing, my father was the headmaster in the school I attended. And although it was a mission school, I think that he kind of set the standard so high that, and there were quite a number of Ghanaian teachers.
Oh.
But when I came though, I think when I came back to Ghana, I was about 18, going on 19, I think. And I remember that I had that. It will slip in every now and then because I had learned to speak as a Ghanaian, which was one of the things at my primary school we kind of we were proud of, like you learn to speak the English. Yeah, but I still had it slip through. I mean, my entire childhood was there. So even the intonation for some words, I still struggle with that now. Sometimes in my sessions. So I remember a very funny one recently. I was trying to pronounce the word reframing. And I wasn't sure whether to say reframing or reframing. So I often would start my sessions by apologizing and say, I'll pronounce some words in a way that I have to correct myself. So for instance, I just learned that I say ask instead of ask.
Ask. Yeah, one was a torture. And my daughter would always correct me, Mommy, it's ask. I'm like, yeah.
So it was there. And when I came, my tree was like, once I spoke to you could tell I wasn't Ghanaian. I understood almost everything, but my auntie used to make fun of me. I remember she asked me to go and buy something. And I came back. She had given me descriptions of the place. And I came back and I said, Manantia Minshia Dino. And then she says, hey. she could die, And one time I was trying to say, I was cooking for her. And I said, I wanted to ask her how she wanted her garden eggs. And I said, Joanna open it. And she said, That's
it. Wow.
Yeah, Ama.
Oh my God. It must have been fun in your home. Wow.
Yeah. It was. But hey, I think I have a gift of languages. I mean, I picked it because I grew up right. I learned to correct those things quickly. And now I'm actually learning proverbs in Chi, which is one of my favorite pastimes now. Yeah. I find it so deep.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So before I get to how, I have another question, but the Branchout, I've always been curious. Why Branchout? What inspired you to name it Branchout?
So that's and it's good you asked, because then it just helps people connect with the story of the brand. So at one time, I think it must have been in 2012, almost at the peak of my career, I lost my job. And I was working in one of the big banks then, and in the branch, I made a decision on signing something that turned out to be fraudulent. And in a space of, I had just been promoted actually. I was going to move from heading the third largest branch to the largest branch when the incidents occurred. And so it was almost like climbing up and suddenly getting a push when you're not expecting it. So you're not standing firm. And so you just fall backwards was how I felt. And a lot of emotions came to visit me at that time, because then as a child, I had struggled with validation from my father. Again, later I learned he was also struggling with expressing love himself. His mother died when he was 12. And so for him, he learned to grow up really, he was the first of 5 children. So he learned to grow up really fast. He showed no emotions, and he was kind of very blunt with some of his statements. And for a very intuitive child, I took a lot of things really in, and my mind would not let me forget. So for a very long time, nothing I did pleased him. Although I thought I was doing my best, So when that incident happened, all the voices that I had learned to bury in my head came back, and they came back loud, But I was in a space, I think my first child was then 13 and my daughter was 10, And so I was in a space where I didn't have the luxury of being down for too long, but I also didn't have the energy to pick myself up and move. So I was in a very terrible place. I was showing my face strong, but inside I was actually crumbling. And I remember one of those mornings I had one of those conversations with God. I said, what did I do wrong? It was, I remember one sentence I asked, I said, God of justice, where are you? And it was such a tough time. And I remember I didn't want to pray. I felt, God, you and I, we are not on good terms right now.
We are not friends.
We are not friends, And so I remember that morning in particular, I had opened the Bible and I was just flipping it. Like, I didn't want to read. I was just in that kind of state. And somehow, as I flipped, it went to Zechariah and it was chapter 6. And I just scanned through, and somewhere around verse 12 of that, it says to go to the house and tell Joshua that he shall branch out from where he is and build the temple, then build the house of the Lord. And I'm like, branch out, huh? Yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to branch out from where I currently am and build what I know it's possible. So I got up, took a shower. I didn't read the verse. That's just it. It was just that sentence. And for me, branch out represented knowing that times are tough, or knowing what your context, but taking the deliberate decision to steer the ship, So I got out and went to register Branchout services. And I remember the gentleman asking me, what will you be doing? I'm like, training, coaching, recruitment, all the things everything, So that's what branching out means. It's actually a philosophy. It's almost freeing yourself from that entitlement mindset and being deliberate about your growth or your journey and saying, in spite of, this is the direction I need to go. So it's not that you do not know where you are or where you stand. You know the context, that things may not be right, or they're right, but there's more. Then you branch out, and you branch out deliberately. So sometimes you need to seek external help for that, and that's where we come in. So that's the story around branch out. It's quite a deep one for me.
You just succeeded in giving me my signature goosebumps. It's really such a beautiful, and I've always been curious. I'm happy that I finally asked this question. And so, Doreen, I think you were born for this, what you do. Everything you've said so far just confirms what I know, the little I know about you coaching and the way you are so detailed, and you are the one bringing people together and making sure, it's just so And Branchout is such an amazing concept. Now that I even know where it's coming from, I love it even more. Now, the women in our audience, women just like you, me, some at the verge of branching out, but probably terrified. Some at the place where they know they need to branch out, but they are like, I am not having it. What do you have to say to some of these women who, based on your experience, because at the time, I don't know how easy it was for you to just say, okay, yeah, I'm going to branch out and do whatever. What do you have for these women to help them, even before they come and see you and sign up for coaching?
Yeah, yeah, Amma. So, and that's, I keep branching out because life doesn't stop. I keep evaluating my context. And for me, that's the very first one. And that's where you and I know that coaching is important. Because when people advise you, it's often from their context, from a place of their knowing, to say, by now you should be doing That's because for them, by then they were doing, but knowing your context. So for the women in your network listening to us, it's first knowing their context. What's your truth right now? Because although we are all women and we have a lot of similarities, our stories are as unique as we are. So for one woman, she has a solid support system that if her branch out means leaving a stable job and experimenting with something that she's passionate about, she still has such a solid support system that enables her to continue as though nothing had changed. For another woman, it's a completely different story. She is the support system, and everybody rallies around her. So knowing her context and knowing what's possible for her at that time, it's often a very good place to start. So when I thought that was my first branch out moment when during the job loss. But now that I think back, I think one of my first branch out moments happened when I was about age 14, when I realized and came to that awareness that, actually, I will never have a time where my father says, "Well done, Amma," because I'm also Amma, well done, Amma. So I accepted that I won't get that from him, and it was okay, but that we'll still have a relationship. And I don't think I saw that as a branch out moment, but it actually was, So it's knowing your context, then having a conversation on what you're working at. I was going to say what the end looks like, but I've realized that the end for me has changed over a period. Mm-hmm. So right now, what the next goal is, and I love to use the analogy of the onion, because then you peel and you discover something new, and you peel, and it's okay to allow yourself that change. But for now, what is it that you want to branch out into? And for some, it's peace of mind. For some, it's to a better relationship with their kids. For some, it's to a better relationship with their spouses. For some, it's branching out into, we actually cannot make this work, but we have children in our midst. And this is a conversation we need to have to parents together, although we can't stay together. So our branch out destinations are very different as our context, but also as different as the unique people that we are. So first, know your context, know what the next goal is, and then now focus on this brand in the branch out. Because often we do everything else. Just needs to get that. I need to get this person this, and then we come in very empty and tired. And I learned that the hard way. When I was going through coach training in 2013, I thought I was doing it for branch out so that I could coach others. Mm-hmm. And then the journey was so surprising. It was actually for me, because then my healing started. I learned to confront the voices in my head. I learned the truth that they may not go away, but I can quieten them. Yeah. And I can call them out for who they are. So I can say, that's that perfectionist in my head again, insisting that until X is done, I can't even be me. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my children, my daughter, she said, "You like everything so perfect, you can't even pose for pictures." So it's that embracing that opportunity to learn about yourself and what you bring into that journey. And often it takes us onto this deep space of what keeps you grounded. For me, it's a relationship with God and prayer, but it's also managing my emotions. And recently I've learned to enjoy silence. I have learned to.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And so I suddenly remember that when I was growing up, my mom she used to bake to supplement the family income. And when she woke up, she used to wake up like 4:30. And anytime she woke up, I would hear her. And so I would follow suit quickly, because remember, I was a second mother. Mm-hmm. So I'll quickly jump out of bed. But I remember that she would sit at the back. We had a back door that had some stairway. Mm-hmm. And because we lived in we lived on, I think our house was built in a valley. That stairway enabled you to see the plateau, one of the mountains close to. And she'll sit there quietly for a while. And I used to wonder, when we woke up so that we would bake, you know. But one of those mornings she asked, can you hear that? And she asked us in the house, Sakina Jing, like, what is that? And I heard nothing. And I said, hear what? And she said, keys. Yeah. And I didn't understand it then, like, but now, anytime I want to sit quietly and reflect and take stock, that comes to my mind. In fact, when I sit in any of those guided conversations where the coach or whoever is saying, think about a time in your childhood, I'm like, that moment.
That moment.
Yeah. So am I appreciating your context, knowing your next goal, and then focusing on you as in the brand in all of this Branchout journey and what you bring into that space. And I know there's more, but these three open the door to a wider conversation. And often in the sessions I have, I have mentoring sessions. Initially, it's been individual, and in 2022, I'm taking the inspiration from you to go into a group, into a group session. But we spend quite a lot of time on knowing you and what works before we even delve into your context story and your next Branchout journey. Because if you are the pilot on this journey, or you are the driver, you need to know what it is that you can do and what you bring into that space. So I will stop here for now, and hopefully more comes out as we speak.
Yes, hopefully those who know that this is what I need, they just reach out to you, and we are going to add the link to how we can find you and all that, and we'll let you share. I mean, you really, and also let me just say this. I admire your mom. I think she was different, like
I agree.
Things like.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So
and if you've ever traveled in the on the Kumasi way highway to at dawn, and when you get to Nkoko, that area, the Kwewu area, and you see the clouds descending on the mountains.
Yes.
That sits in northern Nigeria. So in the morning you would always see that. And for her, she would sit still in the morning, I guess, to pray. But I think that setting just put her in that, So before we started the giddy for the day.
Before life just go right, stop, come,
Because then you had to light the oven, bake the bread, take them out, bag them,
And but I mean, there was a point in my life where I would just wake up running, like, hey, we are late. But now I'm able to get up first thing, I'll go and use the bathroom, then come and sit down quietly, get my journal, and that even if it's 5 minutes, I value that small piece. And then of course, when everybody's out of the house and it's just me.
And that's the power of context. I like that you use that example, because that stage where you needed to run was your context, and it was okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't at that stage in your life, there's no way you'd have had the session in the morning for yourself. That's it. You couldn't have had it, because I also experienced that when I had young kids. If we left home a minute after 6, we're going to be late.
Yes,
absolutely. So I remember that my quiet moment was when I went to the bathroom. And it was like my me place.
A friend of mine said, I have made my bathroom like a hotel room so that when I lock myself.
Yeah. And when I first fell in love with candles, scented candles, I would buy a few and come and place them, then light them. And that was me giving myself the gift of doing nothingness.
Yes.
And it's just focusing on me. So again, it's really good you brought it up, because there are some women listening to us right now who are at that stage in their life where they are 2, 3, tiny children who depend on them. And they know that if they don't, the mornings are not the time for that.
Yeah.
It's knowing that they actually do need that time to clear their mind and thinking of what time works for them. For them, it probably would be that time when you get to work. But there was a time I used to do that. When I get to work and I park the car, I just put my head on the steer. It's like, whoa, that was intense. And then just take it all in. For another person, it's that time of the night where they finally not even lie on the bed. Because there were times where lying on the floor was deep for me, relieving, had been the coldness of the floor. It's almost like, what a hot day, but suddenly comfort, So it's just letting the women at different stages in their lives appreciate that their context may be different. They should be kind to themselves and find what works for them. It's very necessary. Let's just be kind to ourselves because, Charlie, we're doing it too.
Seriously, we are.
We're doing several things at the same time, and sometimes we haven't even been taught to seek support. It's almost like if you did, then you're weak, And sometimes we're repeating things that we don't even understand why we're doing that. When I first got married, I used to live at Achimota, and somehow I felt I had to drive myself to a big market to shop on Saturdays, and so I would go all the way, and buy things in bulk and come and prepare them. I don't know how. No, I think I know how. It was a model from my mom. Like that's the ideal thing to do and without questioning my own circumstance, because there was a market very close to my house. And several others on the way to the big market. But I will go past all of those to the big market without questioning it. But then suddenly one day it hit me. Why? Why do I need to go all the way? And actually, it was just because I had watched my mom do that.
Yeah.
And it worked for her. But is she me now? No. And my context was very different. And so I started shopping from the small market. And now I actually don't shop in bulk anymore because I don't have a lot of people in my house anymore.
Wow. Empty.
But it took me
almost empty.
Almost emptiness. Actually, it took me a long time to realize I didn't need to shop in bulk. So I'll go and buy the tomatoes and bring them home as though I was going to cook for 6 people again. And so one day I asked myself, really, because at a point I had to cut the tomatoes and put in the freezer so they don't get bad. And I'm like, why do I keep doing it? I'm like, so that's why we actually do need to, and I've shared this with you previously off camera, is to ask ourselves, who is sponsoring my thought?
Who is
the sponsor?
I love that statement. Who is sponsoring my thoughts? Yes.
Yeah. Who is the sponsor? I'm like, that's my mom.
Yeah.
My mom is sponsoring this thought, but no more. It's okay. It's lived its usefulness. It's time to move on to something new, I learned this from this person, but it doesn't work for me now, and then drop that. I saw this person do this. Maybe I want to try it now, but it's just to be conscious or be aware of yourself in that conversation. Yeah.
Fantastic. Anyway, before I let you go, I have a few statements. I'm going to read the beginning and then you end it with whatever comes to you. So the first one says, if I could advise my younger self in one short sentence, I would say,
hey, Tam Dijan, that's how that.
Yo, Nigeria just came.
Okay. I would say to the young Mami Amasemenchia, it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know. As a child, I was a writer. I loved to write so bad. I was a teacher. I loved to help my classmates understand things that I could understand, concepts in class that they were struggling with. And by the time I got to secondary school and people knew what they wanted to do, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. I didn't know what I wanted to do, And I had these very interesting conversations with all the adults in my life. It was almost like I needed to know what I was supposed to do. And I didn't know. So I tried, I want to be a writer. Then my father says, writer, how will you make money? How many Walisho Incas do you know? You know, then I said, okay, I'll be a farmer. My mom says, hey, all this school, you want to be a farmer? I'm like, okay, then I'll be a teacher. Then my mom said, hey, you know, but she was a teacher and so was my father. So, and I remember my father saying, be a doctor. Mm-hmm. You're smart. Be a doctor. You always find a job to do. And then later it was become an accountant. It's okay not to know. So dear young Doreen Angel, that's my maiden name. It's actually okay not to know. But I would say in all that process of not knowing, enjoy learning different things on the journey. Because I didn't know, and because I've had to do I've had to perform different roles. I've seen every role that has come my way as a project. I need to learn what it takes to be successful in that role. And then I need to find, now I know that they are my mentors, but I always find somebody who's done it before, who can guide me on that journey. So it's okay not to know. Enjoy that journey. Learn as much as you can, but be mindful of your essential skills. A lot of times we say to our young children, study hard. And recently, one of the coaches in my life said, what if we change that language? If we didn't say study hard, but we said study consciously, study diligently, make study fun, instead of study hard, but that's language, So often we say to them, study hard as though it's just the schoolwork, but let's also teach them the essential skills, relating with people who are not like them, being intuitive to their own emotions, so like, why do I feel this way about situations like this? So knowing themselves, that self-awareness conversation. One of my best friends, and her, Coach Rosemond, she was actually, recently, she and I had a chat, and she's like, why did we wait this long to know these things? Why don't we teach our children really early enough, to know themselves and also understand that even what, even what they know now will change and that it's okay.
Yes.
So it's okay not to know. Keep learning, but be mindful of essential skills like resilience. When your mind is tired, when your body is tired, you go to see a doctor. When your mind is tired, somehow you're taught not to speak about it. No, it's okay. Let's make those conversations on mental health as well normal. So I'm tired, or these things stress me out, and that's why I act like this. And to begin to have conversations on what to do when those situations happen. So that's what I'll say to my younger self. Essentially, being kind to herself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The second one is, I am fabulous because...
because I am Doreen. So
it's interesting. So you're called Mamiama. So that's my local, I'm at home at Mamiama. And then Semenshia. So my husband's Duncan, the original Duncan, who had, I'm told, 72 children across.
Hey.
He's from Semenshia. So I'm thinking, yeah, me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's yeah. It's embracing all of me, the valley moments, the peak moments, and the learnings that have come with it. It's not knowing but moving. It's knowing and moving. It's taking decisions that don't work and sitting back to reflect on them, taking the ones that work and celebrating. So I guess I'm fabulous because I'm this powerful brand. Sent out to influence the world around me.
Yeah. And then the final one is one great book that has helped me in business is.
I know you say one, but can we make it two? So one book that changed my life as an employee is Career Distinction by William Arruda. And up until that time, I always thought that there's no way I'll read a book twice. but it's one book that I've visited several times. Maybe because it so resonated with how I felt then. That mindset that I needed to own me and own it, so freeing yourself of that entitlement conversation in your head and say, actually, you're a brand. And if you did XYZ things, you learn to sell you to different employers. So it was a life-changing read, Career Distinction. I loved it so bad, I bought 2.
Hey!
When I was buying the second one, I said, just in case somebody comes to take this one from me,
backup.
It doesn't bring it. There's a backup for my children.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so for the women listening, for yourself and for the people who work with you, Career Distinction. And that's how my journey on coaching started, because then I went back to coach with them, to learn to become a coach on their principles. And then the one I'm reading now for the second time, Survival Tactics, this one. It says, it's by Ted Stan. It was a gift from my big brother to me on one of my birthdays. It's the top 11 behaviors of successful entrepreneurs. And it's such an amazing read, especially if you find yourself as a woman in business and you're becoming a victim of your own success. You thought you were living corporate to create this space of flexibility and freedom. And suddenly you realize that actually you're more busy and even more tired than when you were in corporate. This one, he walks readers through the journey of his parents who were entrepreneurs and how he struggled to even have a relationship with them because they were constantly busy. They were accountants, they were everything in the business. And as he grew and went to school and started his own business as well, the things he decided to do differently so that he would enjoy the fruits of his effort as an entrepreneur. So for the business people on the call as well, Survival Tactics, it's a very good read. Maybe you and I, we should have a session for entrepreneurs on this because we are on the journey with them. And I like journeys like that. I like journeys with learning and doing together. I actually have an additional copy, so I will arrange. I will arrange with Riga on the next time.
Thank you so much. Amen. Now tell us, so Branchout, do you have any program, anything coming up?
Yes, and it's good you asked because in Q1 next year, or in Q1, 2022, the things that will two programs are quite important for Branchout. We're having the Transitioning Leaders program. It's an open program where people can register to join, and information for this is available on branchoutafrica.com.
Yeah, I'll add
so
that.
If you're thank you. So if you're a leader who is moving from one stage of leadership to the other, so maybe first you were leading only yourself. Now you're leading other people. You do know that you got the promotion because you were doing well as an individual. Now suddenly you have to bring that mix into it of leading other people. And it's a whole new skill set that you need. So we're having an open session for leaders who want to learn to lead others well. But if you move from leading other individuals to leading other leaders, there's also a whole new skill set. And I'm blending mentoring and coaching on that journey so that leaders can learn all the things. So a bit of my journey, but also a bit of principles. We'll be using the book, The Leadership Pipeline, for that.
By John Maxwell?
No, Leadership Pipeline is by we'll get the name. It's not John Maxwell. It's not John Maxwell book, but it's an amazing read. I loved it so much because I had lived the principles and the journeys in the book. So we use that book. For me, it's important that we cite the source so that it's not like I'm the one coming up with those concepts. Yeah. So we use that one. And then we'll have another program for people who, I say people who are trying to find their songs. So you want to, so it's actually just to help people branch out on their terms. So if you're a lady or you know any other lady or gentleman actually on the in your life who who wants to figure out the next step? You remember the story, my journey that I shared with you, is to say, I'm at this place in my life. I know there could be more, but I'm trying to figure it out. Then that Life by Design program is for you. Or I'm at this place, I'm doing well, I think there's more. Or I know that this is not where I need to be, but I can't seem to figure out my next step out. Initially, we called the program, because I did it with individuals, I called it the Branchout coaching. But through a conversation with Coach Catherine, we came up with the name Life by Design. So we'll have those two programs running in Q1, but links for different cohorts for registration will be available on the site. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so, yes, on your website as well, if we need to reach you, that's where we come.
Absolutely. Reach me there, but I can also share the email is actually there on the site as well.
Okay,
it's at, and you and I joked about saying ask, right? So it's ask@branchoutafrica.com. So more like Bisa.
Bisa. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I've had such a hearty discussion full of wisdom, knowledge, but fun. I mean, perfect. It's just the perfect morning. It's the right.
Thank you, Amma.
This is clean coffee. This won't have any.
It is. It is.
Thank you so much, Coach.
When do I get to interview you, though?
Oh, me. Let's say the word and I'm yours. Are we flying to Dubai for the interview? Where will it be?
Just before the International Women's Conference.
Making myself available, definitely. Thank you so much.
Good. No, thank you, Amma. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Well, how was it? So many nuggets, right? I especially loved the stories around her mom and the silence bit. Like, it took me so long. I'm in my 30s. Officially, I'm 22. But I am actually closer to 40. And it's only recently that I discovered the power of silence. And I loved that. I loved also how she talks about branching out. And it's not like, just branch out of work or whatever, but it could be so many aspects of your life. Tell me, what did you learn from this conversation? What spoke to you? You can tell me in the comments. I'm more than happy to read and respond to your comments. Thank you so much. If you want to check Doreen out, and I totally think you should, I encourage you to click on the link, check out the books she's mentioned as well. Definitely in the Fabulous Woman community, we will be checking out the books, especially the book on entrepreneurship. And so check Doreen out and then sign up to her program. She's amazing. I've had the opportunity to work with her. She's really, really amazing like that. And she does great leadership. That is so her. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please, let's continue to just be amazing, be fabulous in this new year, 2022.